Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Recently, Jumbo, the publishers, contacted me and asked if I would like to review some of their family strategy games, and of course I said yes. And Jumbo sent me 3 games. They sent me Caper, How to Rob a Bank, and Overbooked. I have done a written review of How to Rob a Bank, which you can find on Always Bored, Never Boring, and I am doing a written review of Overbooked. But the other day I had some friends over and we played Overbooked, and I happened to have my camera equipment around, so we recorded ourselves playing it, and I thought it was an opportunity to do a quick video, show you what it's all about, and give a few of my thoughts prior to actually doing a full written review. So that's what this video is. Overbooked is a tile placement game, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over the simple basic rules, the introductory form of the game. These are the rules that I play with my daughter, who is 8 years old, and she has absolutely no problem with these rules whatsoever, and she's able to play confidently and well and score good points. There are more advanced rules for introducing events and harder cards to place, but this is how most people will first experience the game. So each player, they're running their own airline. So they have a check-in, they have their own plane, and they have their own boarding ramp. In their check-in, they also have 6 food vouchers. And then this is the lobby. This is a stack of groups of passengers waiting to come into the lobby, and these are the passengers who are already here. And what you're trying to do is get as many passengers into your plane as possible. You want no empty seats. You will lose points at the end of the game for every empty seat on your plane. So you want to fill as many seats as possible. However, when passengers come in, they have strict seating requirements, and you will score points for how you arrange those people in your plane. So on your turn, you have to take one of the groups of passengers from the lobby. You can always take the passengers that are closest to the boarding ramp for free. You can just take that card, and then you take tokens that match the colours of the suitcases here. So if I was to take this card, I'd take 1 green passenger token and 2 orange passenger tokens. However, if I don't want to take that card, I can actually buy off the people here and advance a different card to the head of the queue. And I can do that by giving the people food vouchers. So if I want to, I can give a food voucher to this card, and then I can take this card. If I don't want this card, I can use another food voucher and take this card. This is a good way to get the cards that you want. However, if somebody else then takes one of these cards, they get all the food vouchers that are on the card as well. And obviously they can then use those food vouchers to gain an advantage later in the game. So it's a payoff between what you need to do now and what you're prepared to give your opponent. So let's say that to start this game, I don't want this card. I would put a food token here, and I would take this card. So this will be the passengers that are about to board my plane. In this case, it would be 2 blue passengers, a green passenger, and a red passenger. There are actually 5 different types of passenger, and they all have these super cute little tokens. So this is a senior citizen passenger, which is the green passengers. You also get red passengers, which are romantic passengers. They want to be in a partnership with another red token. And then there are blue passengers, they're a rugby team. And there are white passengers, which are children. This one's leaning over the back of his chair. He's pestering the person behind him. And then there are orange passengers as well. Like so. So you take your card, and then you take the tokens that match the colour of the luggage on the card. So in this case, I would take 2 blues, 1 red, and a green. And now I have to place those tokens in my aeroplane. I'm not allowed to split the pattern across an aisle, and I have to match the pattern on the card. I can rotate the pattern, but I'm not allowed to flip it or mirror it. So let's say, in this case, I decide I'm going to put the green there, a blue there, a blue there, and a red there. There we go. I have matched the conditions on the card. That card is then discarded. All of these cards advance up, and a new group of passengers enter the lobby. And then it's the next player's turn. Seems very simple, but there are conditions on how you're going to score points at the end of the game for where you've placed your passengers. For example, the white passengers, the children, they will score you 3 points at the end of the game for each child that you have on your plane who is completely surrounded by adults. All the other tokens in the game are adults. So, for example, if I had a child here sat next to the window, he's sat next to the window and then he's got an adult here, and an adult here. Doesn't matter what colour the adults are, but he is completely enclosed, and therefore that token would score me 3 points. However, if the child was over here, he is not completely surrounded, and therefore he would score me no points. Romantic couples score you points. They score you 5 points for each pair, each romantic pair, which is 2 adjacent red tokens, and they can be adjacent in front or behind like that, or side by side. If you have 2 together like that, you will score 5 points for each pair. However, if for some reason a third red token was here, you wouldn't score any points for that, because 3 is a crowd, and in fact more than 3 is also a crowd. So if you have large groups of red, they don't score you anything. They need to be completely isolated from other romantic couples. The remaining colours, green, blue and orange, they just like to be in groups of similar kinds. So you want as many green tokens together as possible, as many blue tokens together as possible, and as many orange tokens together as possible. At the end of the game, you will score points equal to the number of tokens in each of the largest groups you have. So if you have a group of 3 green passengers and a group of 5 green passengers, you would score 5 points for green. You're allowed to double that score if you also happen to have the largest group of that type of passenger from all the players on the table. And that's how you score. The other wrinkle in the rules is that because you're always matching a pattern on a card, later in the game you may find that the only way you can put a card in play is to actually drop tokens on top of tokens that are already on the board. If you do that, you kick off the people who were already in the seat. So for example, if later on in the game I needed to place an orange token on this poor rugby player here, the orange goes there, and the poor rugby player, he gets kicked off to the boarding ramp, and he is no longer able to go on the flight. And at the end of the game, I will lose 2 points for each person on the boarding ramp. So that's it. That's how you score. You score points for your couples, your romantic couples. You score groups for your protected children who are completely surrounded by adults. You score points for your largest group of senior citizens, rugby players, and other travellers. And then you will lose 1 point for each empty chair you have. You will lose 2 points for each passenger you had to kick off the plane, and you will also score bonus points for any food tokens you have left over. The game continues until one group of passengers runs out. And that's the game. There really is a lot to like in Overbooked. I think its biggest strength is its accessibility. It really is easy to play, easy to teach. The recommended age on the box is 8+, and I would say that's pretty much on the money. I have been playing this game with my daughter, who is 8 at the moment, and she has got on really well with it and plays very well. But it's very easy to set up. You just put down the lobby, shuffle a deck of cards, give everybody a player board, and away you go, really. It's that simple. And the rules are so straightforward. It's pick a card from the lobby, play the tokens to your board that match the configuration on that card, move on to the next player. And that's the rules in their most basic form. And then what they've done is they've introduced modular elements that you can plug into your game to add layers of complexity. And even those, they're not making the game very complicated, but they're giving you more things to think about. There's 3 different things that you can introduce, that you can layer into the game. One is that each passenger card actually has a little symbol in the corner that means different things, and it's something else to think about when you pick the cards. They're little bonus perks, like they might give you an extra victory point at the end of the game, or they might allow you to swap 2 of your tokens around on the board. So it's something else to look at when you're picking a card. In addition to the combination of passengers and the shape they're in, it's what benefit can you get from that little symbol, and can it help your layout on the board. The second thing you can do is there's a small set of extra difficult cards, and they're just the same as the other passenger cards, but the patterns on them are much more difficult to actually pull off. And you can shuffle those into the game, and they're kind of like a high risk, high reward thing. If you can pull them off, then you get to put a lot of passengers in your plane really quickly, which probably will end up doing a lot of good for you, but they're really tricky to place. And the final thing is there are event cards that you can add to the game. And what you do with the event cards is you pick 1 or 2 of them at the start of the game, and you put them out so that everybody can see them, and they are an additional way to score points at the end of the game. If you can position the passengers in your plane so that at the end of the game you can match some of the events that have been laid out, then you'll get extra points. For example, it may say that you need to have a completely full horizontal row in line with the exits of the plane, for example, and then you'll get like 10 extra victory points or something. So there's lots of different ways to add some extra difficulty to the game, but none of those ways are actually adding more complexity. It's just adding other options, and it's all entirely modular, which is fantastic. So again, it makes it very accessible, and it makes it very easy to tailor the game to your particular play style or group or whatever. And in fact, you can even play the game solo. There's a quite a robust solitaire mode where there are 3 different scenarios, and you play the game as normal, except you can take any card you want from the lobby. You don't have to pay the food tokens to jump down the queue. You can take any card you want, but if you want to remove a card from the queue, then you pay a food voucher and you permanently remove the card from the lobby and replace it with somebody with a new card. And the aim in the solitaire game is there's 3 scenarios, and they will give you a set of passengers that you have to have on your plane. For example, it might say you have to have 5 sets of romantic couples to fly away to a romantic weekend, and you just need to play until you can match the criteria of the scenario. And if you can do it, then you win the solo mode. And that's a cool, fun little thing. And of course, another thing that I have to mention is the absolutely adorable artwork. The artwork is absolutely fantastic. It adds a lot of character to it. If you look at the lobby, there's superheroes coming through. There's like an Iron Man type character who's setting off the metal detectors. In the check-in areas, there are different monsters. There's Dracula's there with his pet werewolf. There's somebody trying to smuggle a Cthulhu type creature through customs and things like that. Lots of really cool, fun little things. And the characters on the tokens, every single token seems to have a unique character. So when you're playing the game, it's really fun to see your plane fill up with these unique characters, and you can position them out on the board, and you can make sure like your romantic couples are facing each other, or if you want, you can make them face away from each other if they're having a little spat or whatever. And you know, this is a game that you could really play it with coloured squares on a grid and get the same technical game, but by adding that theme, it really does take the game to another level. And my daughter in particular, she's absolutely in love with these little characters and loves coming up with these little stories and ideas of where they're going and what they're doing, and little things like the children peering over the back of the chairs and things like that, or crying. And it's really, really nice artwork. In terms of negatives, I don't really have a lot. I think the biggest thing that I think most people may potentially complain about is it's a little bit along the lines of a multiplayer solitaire game. Each player is working on their own board. They're trying to fill their own airplane up. They take a card from the lobby, and they position those characters in their own plane, and there's nothing you can do really to affect the other players' planes directly. there's no take that cards that you can play and to steal passengers and that sort of thing. But of course, there is indirect competition. There's competition for the cards in the lobby. You can, if you know that a player really needs a particular colour, you can grab that card before they get a chance to. But that in itself is nicely balanced, because if you don't take the card at the front of the queue, then you have to put down those food vouchers. So even if you take a card that another player might really need to mess with their plans, you've potentially gifted them a load of food vouchers that they can then take as well. So it's got a nice balancing mechanism in that, and there is a little bit of indirect competition, but it is largely a personal puzzle to try and solve, to try and fill your own plane. And there's not a lot of there's not a lot of ways that you can upset the other players at the table, which I actually think is quite a good thing for a family strategy game, because you know, when you sit down with your kids, you don't necessarily want to be playing lots of cards on the kids that are really hammering them. You want them to kind of get into the flow of the game and enjoy and appreciate filling up their plane and having that fun themselves, and you know, watching their enjoyment as they fill a plane or work out a spatial awareness puzzle to achieve their goals. So I think it works for this particular game. But yeah, it is something to be aware of, that there isn't a lot of direct in-your-face competition. It's a much more indirect, I'm going to take this card because I know you want it. But I guess that's all I've got to say on it, really. The footage that's been playing in the background here is actually it's myself playing with two of my friends who had never played the game before. We played very quickly. I think we did the game beginning to end in under an hour. It may have been just a little bit longer. And one of the new players actually won. My friend Mark actually won. He squeaked a win over me by 3 points. And my other friend James wasn't too far behind either. It was a very close game, and I found that games do tend to be quite close with this, and it really does come down to maybe just one card difference, or you know, you play one token just wrong, or you don't quite surround that last child on your plane to get the extra 5 points that you need. It really does quite often come down to the wire, which I think it's a sign of a nicely constructed game. And yeah, it's just a pleasant experience. It's quite laid back. There's not a lot of tension. There's not a lot of it doesn't get tense. It doesn't. You feel kind of relaxed, and you play at a nice pace. Everything moves quickly. There's not a lot of room for analysis paralysis, and I've had a lot of fun with it. And I really do think it's a very cute, fun little game. But anyway, I've talked for long enough. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any comments or queries, do please leave them in the comments below. I do my best to respond to everybody who leaves a comment. And if you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't, because that would make me very happy. Thank you very much for your time, and I will hopefully see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.